and all communities in Toronto remains our top priority.
Arrests in a shooting at a Toronto Jewish girls' elementary school.
Tonight, 2 people facing multiple charges, one of them a youth. Good evening. The Premier called it a disgusting act of anti-Semitism. The bullets fired on the holiest day on the Jewish calendar.
It was the second shooting at the school. Police investigating whether the two are connected, saying keeping the community safe is their top priority. CTV's Mike Walker is live in North York with the story. Mike.
Well, Nathan, Michelle, police have charged a 20-year-old man and a 17-year-old boy in connection with the shooting incident at this Jewish school last week. And at this point, investigators are still trying to determine the motive. A large blue tarp still covers the windows of the Beis Mushka after shots were fired at the Jewish girls' school last weekend on the holiday of Yom Kippur. Investigators announcing today they have arrested 2 suspects, including a teenager.
While I can't share the details on the motivation behind this incident due to the ongoing investigation, we are thoroughly exploring why this incident occurred.
Investigators say the suspects fired shots at the school from a vehicle around 4 a.m. on October 12th. The Guns and Gang Unit taking the lead on the investigation with support from the Hate Crime Unit. Police say they seized a gun and yesterday arrested 20-year-old Helder Antonio De Amedia and a 17-year-old boy who cannot be identified under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. They are facing a combined 20 charges,
including unauthorized possession of a loaded firearm, a Glock handgun modified to be fully automatic. The male youth faces additional charges for failing to comply with a release order.
It's the second time this school near Dufferin and Finch has been targeted this year. Shots were fired at the school in May, also while it was closed. No arrests have been made in that case. At this point, investigators can't say if the 2 incidents are connected. The shootings have drawn condemnation from elected officials.
Because we have zero tolerance for any anti-Semitism, any form of hate with any religion.
But police are not yet classifying this latest incident a hate crime.
I assure you that if we find evidence, motivation that this is motivated by hate, we will explore the aggravating nature of this with our partners in the ministry.
The force has reported a nearly 75% increase in incidents against the Jewish community from a year ago. They have stepped up their presence in the community and today say that will continue as long as necessary. The 2 suspects were scheduled to appear in court today. Police say their investigation into this incident is ongoing. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. 5 teenagers from Hamilton have been arrested in connection with the sexual assault of a teen girl in Vaughan. It happened on October 6th near Norwood Avenue and Jane Street. Police say the victim was approached by a group of boys who brought the girl to a secondary location where they sexually assaulted her. 3 of the accused are 15 years old. 2 of them are 14. They are all facing several charges, including forcible confinement and sexual assault.
We're learning more tonight about a former Olympian turned accused drug lord.
Ryan James Wedding remains a fugitive tonight, wanted by the FBI. He's believed to have orchestrated multiple murders and shootings in the GTA connected to an international drug operation. CTV's Beth McDonnell joins us live with the latest on the case. Beth.
Michelle, while we are learning more about this case, which spans across North America, the accused leader of this criminal group is still out there, and some of the murders connected to the investigation haven't been solved. Once a Canadian Olympic snowboarder, Ryan Wedding moved to Mexico, where U.S. authorities allege he used the aliases of Giant and Public Enemy as a leader of a criminal organization. Now the FBI is offering up to $50,000 for information on the wanted fugitive.
There's quite a transition there from an Olympic athlete representing Canada internationally and the fame that comes with that to just a life of greed and crime.
It's a complex investigation with the FBI, RCMP, OPP, Peel, and Niagara Police involved.
It's pretty spectacular news. I mean, the scope of this investigation was kept relatively confidential.
Here's a timeline of what we do know. In 2002, Ryan Wedding competed in the Salt Lake City Olympics. In November 2023, there were 5 separate shootings in 2 weeks that became part of a Peel police investigation known as Project Midnight, including November 20th when Jagtar Singh Sidhu and Harbhajan Kaur Sidhu are killed in Caledon, their daughter seriously injured. The U.S. Attorney's Office says between January and August, cocaine was shipped from Colombia through Mexico and California to Canada using long-haul semi-trucks. April 1st, 2024, police say 29-year-old Randy Fader was killed over a drug debt in Niagara Falls. On May 18th, 2024, 39-year-old Mohammed Safar was killed in Brampton. Then last week, Canadian Andrew Clark was arrested in Mexico. And yesterday, the FBI announced Ryan Wedding and 15 others were charged in connection with drug trafficking and orchestrating murders. 10 are Canadians, with 4 arrested in Ontario and 3 arrested in the U.S. this week. 43-year-old Wedding remains at large and faces 8 felonies, including 1 count of leading a criminal enterprise and 3 counts of murder. Police say the murders of the Singhs in Caledon was a case of mistaken identity. While police allege it was retaliation for a stolen drug shipment, the search is still on to find who pulled the trigger.
There's nothing more that I would want to do than sit down with the family and tell them that we now have the shooters in custody. That's the ultimate goal. Now that we're collaborating a little more with the FBI, you're right. Were these shooters brought into Canada? Were they local people that were hired? Was it a complete one-off? Like, we can't rule anything out at this point.
Police say they know who the intended target was in this case, but haven't released their identity. There is a video of a suspect vehicle burning about a 20-minute drive from where the shooting took place. Police are urging anyone with information to come forward. In addition to Wedding, another Canadian remains at large, Genadai Billanog. RCMP are asking any information on their whereabouts to call their local police station or Crime Stoppers. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. Smoke filled the air in the city's East End today.
Fire crews called into action to battle a stubborn 3-alarm blaze in the Beaches. Flames broke out around 3:40 a.m. at a home on Kipandavie Avenue. That's near Queen Street East and Woodbine Ave. First responders say before they were able to get to the scene, the fire had spread to an electric vehicle in front of the home and 2 adjacent properties. Residents were able to get outside safely.
I think the main thoughts were around the neighbors and just to make sure that they got out of the house okay. And it did take some time. I think it was about 20 minutes before we located them in the park behind the house, and during that time I think everyone had this kind of horrible feeling like, oh my God, if they're in there, that's probably it, because the flames were pouring out the second floor.
No injuries were reported. Toronto Fire says as many as 32 trucks responded to the scene, but the bulk of the flames were knocked down by later in the morning. So far, there's been no word on the cause.
A big marathon takes over Toronto streets this weekend. Just ahead, gearing up for the excitement and feats of endurance, along with the road closures, delays, and detours.
And if you had to dream up weather for a marathon weekend in October, the conditions are something else. We are heading into a warm and sunny stretch. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. What a glorious live shot of the city skyline, Jess.
We have seen such a beautiful kind of end to the work and school week, Michelle. And if you want to get out this weekend to go to a football game, to run a marathon, get your pumpkins, get your apples, it's fantastic to do all of it. High pressure has settled in. We're looking at a ridge in the jet stream, and almost everybody right across the province is experiencing this bit of a warm up. Right now, we're sitting between kind of 11 and 15 degrees for the most part, right around southern Ontario. So still in the double digits as we head into this early part of our evening. Now, if you are making your way out tonight, it stays quite warm. Right now, we're at 15 through the island, 16 through Pearson. The low tonight, pretty seasonal at about 7, but there is light wind and not a cloud in the sky. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast, break it all down and how warm it is going to get. But right now, I'll send it back to Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Jess. Yes, it's shaping up to be a beautiful and busy weekend in Toronto.
Great news for the thousands of people set to compete in the Waterfront Marathon, but it will come with closures in an already traffic-clogged city. CTV's Scott Lightfoot joins us live with more on what you need to know. Scott.
Nathan, one of those closures starting right now. This is Bay Street behind me. We are at Queen Bay, closed from Queen till Dundas from now pretty much through the whole weekend. This is where the marathon, half marathon finishes. They're about to start setting up the stage here. As you mentioned, 30,000 runners in the city this weekend, some running for records, others running for charity, some just running to show they can do it, but they'll be taking over the streets for the majority of the weekend. For some runners, this weekend will mark a first.
Just started getting into running a few years ago, figure that this is that kind of peak that you hit, see if we can do it, see if all of that effort is going to pay off.
For others, like Jim Fay of North Carolina, it's one of many marathons, but a first in Toronto.
I heard it's cool weather, it's a relatively flat course, and it's a beautiful city.
Thousands of people will take to the streets this weekend for the annual TCS Toronto Waterfront Marathon.
We're going to have 30,000 runners this weekend from 70 countries. It's going to be the largest foot race that Toronto has ever had.
The route winds its way through the core, going past Parkside Drive in the west and well into the beach in the east. The course provides a challenge for runners of all skills and abilities.
With streetcar tracks down Bathurst, that is always a bit of a challenge, right? So us in the push rims or hand cycles, we have to take extra care in terms of when we're going down the streets and being able to navigate those spaces.
This weekend will also be challenging for those driving or trying to get around, with dozens of road closures, including portions of Bay, Richmond, University, Adelaide, Wellington, Front, King, Queen, Lakeshore, Bayview, Woodbine, Carlaw, and Eastern Avenue. Access to and from the Gardiner will be restricted at Jameson and British Columbia Drive. The race will provide an online interactive map to show people what roads are open or closed.
On Lakeshore, we're off Lakeshore west of Bathurst by 11 a.m. And in the interactive map, you can see this and plan accordingly.
The best way to get to or get around the marathon may be public transit, but the TTC also has a number of service adjustments in place.
What it will impact is significantly the routes in the downtown core. So you think about routes along King, Queen, Bathurst, College, in those areas. So there are a number of bus routes that are impacted.
All roads should be reopened by 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon, a time when some runners will hopefully be celebrating a new achievement.
Well, we'll get there. It won't be pretty, but we'll get there.
And this is where those runners will be finishing. Again, road closures here on Bay Street have started now. Most of the road closures start in the early morning hours, both Saturday and Sunday, and some that go through to the late afternoon hours. You can check the Toronto Waterfront Marathon website for the latest. You can check the TTC website for the latest on service disruptions as well. Reporting live at Bay and Queen, I'm Scott Lightfoot. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Scott. City workers were at Allen Gardens Park today working to clear out some encampments. According to the city, around 9 people who were living in the park near Sherbourne and Carlton left, with 5 going into the shelter system. Crews were there to clean up some of the things left behind. The city considers any tent or structure in a park or public green space illegal and can issue trespass notices at any time.
Take a look at this. Provincial police say a stolen vehicle flipped over on the 401 in Mississauga this morning. 3 middle eastbound lanes near Winston Churchill were closed for the cleanup, and 1 person is in police custody, although it's not clear what charges they may be facing or if they were injured.
And as we head into the weekend, a collapsed crane remains in a precarious position after collapsing yesterday in East York. This happened at a construction site on Vanderhoof Avenue. It remains to be seen when the site will be cleared. No injuries have been reported.
Still ahead, we're covering billions of dollars in smoking-related health costs in this country. Details on a historic deal with tobacco giants and the long-running legal battle.
The first black female superintendent in Toronto police history is appealing a demotion she received for her role in a cheating scandal. Stacey Clark was handed that punishment from a police tribunal over the summer for leaking confidential exam questions to 6 black officers. The decision would drop her rank to inspector for 2 years. But Clark is now pushing back, calling the demotion excessive, harsh, unwarranted, and disproportional. The appeal also suggests behavior like Clark's was rampant within Toronto police. So far, no date's been set for the appeal to be heard.
At Queen's Park, you could say it is the calm before the storm.
Quiet now inside, but that will change when the legislature resumes next week. Provincial politics set to heat up Monday. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has more on what we can expect.
A lot has happened in the 19 weeks MPPs have been away from this place. Expect a rowdy first day as they get back to it Monday.
MPPs will be returning to Queen's Park for the first time in 137 days. Since the House let out, we've seen 2 cabinet shuffles, a by-election, some controversial policy announcements, and relentless buzz about an early campaign.
We're going to continue building Ontario, getting projects done, and just moving forward. So let's stay tuned.
In recent weeks, the Ford government's unveiled a suite of policies aimed at drivers.
We're getting that tunnel built, I'll guarantee you.
Promising a tunnel under Highway 401 for cars and transit. Legislation's coming Monday that will require provincial sign-off for new bike lanes that remove space for cars. And the Premier's ready to go further.
We need to and will remove and replace existing bike lanes on primary roads that are bringing traffic in our cities to an absolute standstill.
The Finance Minister will update us on the state of the province's books October 30th. That will reportedly include cash payments to Ontarians to deal with the cost of living. While Peter Bethlen-Fulvey won't tip his hand.
I'm constantly looking at ways, as you heard from the Premier, putting money back in people's pockets.
Opposition parties will be jockeying for position, trying to demonstrate theirs as the party ready to be the next government.
What really will make a difference is if we could fix healthcare, if we could get people the affordable housing that they need.
Certainly affordability, access to healthcare for the people who need it, nurses, teachers, overcrowding in our classrooms.
Arguing the government's priorities are misplaced.
Nobody is talking about the need to waste millions of dollars to get booze in corner stores 1 year early.
There are potential landmines for the government ahead, with a probe of the Ontario Place redevelopment plan underway by the Auditor General, and an NDP request to the Integrity Commissioner to take a look too.
We're deeply concerned about what seems to be a pattern of preferential treatment.
We don't know yet if the Integrity Commissioner will take up that case. His deep dive on the Greenbelt proved to be a turning point in that scandal, one the government remains under RCMP investigation for. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Also today, the province officially launched its review of field trip policies at the Toronto District School Board. This follows a controversial excursion last month when students from several schools attended an Indigenous rights rally downtown. The TDSB apologized after video from social media showed students participating in a protest where pro-Palestinian slogans were chanted. The Ministry of Education has now appointed its former Chief Equity Officer, Andrew Case, to lead a review, saying schools should focus on, quote, learning, not politics. Education Minister Jill Dunlop said in a statement, "We have a responsibility to act when a school board fails to take appropriate action. Through this review, we are helping to ensure that schools across the province prioritize the health, safety, and inclusion of all students and their learning environment."
Many Toronto students and families were left scrambling for a second day in a row as a long list of school bus routes were canceled this morning. More than 100 buses were unable to operate. Toronto Student Transportation Group says this is because of an issue that First Student revealed on Wednesday night. The company says it had purchased a number of passenger buses, but it didn't have drivers with the proper licenses to drive them. The routes impacted primarily serving students with special needs.
I've never experienced this before in my term in transportation, and I've talked to a few of my consortium managers across the province, and the same thing for them. They've never heard of this kind of 6 weeks in, and all of a sudden now we have vehicle and licensing issues. So it is unique in terms of that, and extremely unfortunate.
Nearly 1,600 students across the public and Catholic school boards were impacted. First Student told officials they expect normal bus operations to resume Monday.
A long-running lawsuit over the health effects of smoking may be nearing an end.
A proposed $32.5 billion deal would see 4 tobacco giants compensate provinces and territories, as well as some smokers and their families. CTV's Garrett Berry has the story.
If approved, this will be the first time that Canadian smokers will be paid directly for their injuries by tobacco companies. Still, we are hearing some criticism from anti-smoking groups who say the deal lets big tobacco continue to profit in Canada.
Plaintiffs in Quebec can file claims for compensation of up to $100,000 each if they suffered from throat or lung cancer, and less, $30,000, if they suffered from COPD. Smokers from other provinces can file for as much as $60,000 for damages caused by lung or throat cancer, or $18,000 in the case of COPD.
We started this case in 1998. Not a single person in the world had received a single penny from a tobacco company in compensation. And as a result of this litigation, tens of thousands of Canadians will receive very significant awards.
The payout includes those who have since died, like Jean-Yves Blais, who was among the first plaintiffs to sue the 3 tobacco giants.
He should be here and talking to you. He should be talking to you. It was his fight, and he died because of his addiction.
Under the proposed plan, filed Thursday, provinces and territories will receive payments over time. Money to smokers and families will flow relatively quickly upon approval, but almost half the total payout destined for those provincial and territorial governments won't start moving until 2030.
Based on the revenues that the companies are expected to make on the sale of tobacco products in the years to come, even past 2035. And so I think that that's where it's very disappointing.
The proposal ends 5 years of negotiations between the parties that started when the tobacco giants lost a lawsuit in 2019. The Canadian Cancer Society says this proposed deal doesn't do nearly enough to reduce smoking and reduce future disease.
The way this settlement is worded, it keeps people smoking. And these diseases are still going to happen. It's a gift to the tobacco industry.
The proposal needs to be approved by creditors and then by an Ontario judge. And the Canadian Cancer Society says it will fight to try to change the terms of the agreement before it's too late. Garrett Perry, CTV News, St. John's.
On Parliament Hill, the head of the RCMP and 2 cabinet ministers have been summoned to testify about this week's stunning allegations against India. The National Security Committee agreed today to call RCMP Commissioner Mike Duhaime, Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly, and Public Safety Minister Dominique LeBlanc. On Monday, Duhaime said the RCMP had been investigating multiple cases of extortion, coercion, and violence linked to agents of the Indian government. Ottawa expelled 6 Indian diplomats amid allegations they worked with criminal organizations to target 6 separatists in Canada. The committee has set aside 6 meetings to discuss the situation. Today, Joly said the remaining Indian diplomats in Canada are on notice.
One day after learning of the killing of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, U.S. President Joe Biden says there's a road to peace in the Middle East, although the path remains far from clear. CTV's Adrian Gobriel has details on why stability in the region may still be out of reach.
Allahu Akbar. Standing outside and inside the remains of a blown-out mosque in Gaza, some Palestinians held Friday prayers for Hamas's fallen leader. While in Jordan, weekly pro-Palestinian demonstrators condemned the killing of Sinwar by Israeli forces. Standing with protesters, the Secretary General of Jordan's Labour Party, saying in part, killing these people fuels the fire of jihad, the fire of fighting, the fire of steadfastness, and the fire of resistance. And Hamas's deputy chief today confirming that they will continue to resist and keep the hostages captive. Saying in part, those prisoners will not return to you until the aggression of our people in Gaza is stopped and full withdrawal from it and release of our heroes. In Tel Aviv, family members of hostages still missing are sharing concerns about what this latest development could mean for their loved ones.
We don't know what terrorist will revenge his death with something that he will do to the hostages.
The killing of Sinwar has left intelligence analysts to try and decipher what might come next.
It is estimated that a considerable number of the hostages are not alive anymore, and probably the rest who are alive are in a very, very bad condition. The bottom line is that we could not expect, unfortunately, to the immediate release of all the hostages.
There is also now questions about who may take the leadership of Hamas. One man seen as the heir apparent to Yahya Sinwar, his brother Mohammed, an elusive Hamas figure seen here in this photo provided by the IDF. The younger Sinwar recently became Hamas's military commander.
Israel's chief pathologist who performed the autopsy on Sinwar's body says the cause of death for the mastermind of the October 7th attack was a bullet to the head. Adrian Gobriel, CTV News, Toronto.
In Brussels today, Canada's defense minister provided details on the latest military aid package for Ukraine. At a NATO defense ministers meeting, Bill Blair announced Canada is spending nearly $65 million. More than $50 million of that will go towards arms, ammunition, and drones, as well as uniforms and personal protective equipment. The remaining funds will support military training and be used to strengthen Ukraine's cyber forces. The money comes from $500 million promised by Prime Minister Trudeau at the NATO summit in July. Canada has committed more than $19.5 billion in support since Russia's invasion in 2022. There is a countrywide power outage in Cuba, leaving millions of people without electricity. The island's largest power plant failed, causing the national electric grid to shut down. Authorities have not said why the plant went offline. Emergency measures are in place to cut demand, including suspending classes, shutting down some state-owned workplaces, and canceling non-essential services. Officials say they have begun taking steps to restore power, but the process will take time.
The King has begun the first visit to Australia by a reigning British monarch in 13 years. He was welcomed to Sydney Friday evening, greeted by the Prime Minister and other dignitaries. The King is making his inaugural visit to an overseas realm as sovereign. The official program for the 6-day trip kicks off Sunday. Tonight, the sails of the Sydney Opera House were illuminated with a photographic tribute to the royal couple. Earlier, the royals said they are really looking forward to celebrating Australia's rich cultures and communities that make it so special. Coming up, a call to shape your community. The city wants to hear from you as it maps out plans for new parkland and recreation facilities over the next 2 decades.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, many employees have returned to the office, but there are still a lot of people working from home. If that's you, do you have a comfortable workspace? Everything from a good chair to a footrest can make all the difference. I'll have my reports. That story's just ahead.
And the warm-up has already really begun. Northern Ontario, the hot spot today, cap is casing at 21.7, and almost everyone climbing into the 20s as we head into the start of our weekend. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast and show you how long this heat is sticking around. And stay with us. We have another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
At the height of the pandemic, many Canadians created offices to work from home, but now the number of people working remotely is only about 18%.
If you're still working from home or occasionally have to, the importance of using some ergonomic upgrades can really improve your workspace. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Nathan and Michelle. Many workplaces use a hybrid model, allowing employees to work both in the office as well as remotely. It's why a good home office is important, and if you have one, the right chair, footrest, and even a laptop stand can make a world of difference.
Many people who work from home were trying to get things done on the living room couch or the kitchen table, which is why so many went on to create home offices. Rachel Kent did, but admits she still hasn't found a comfortable chair.
I've tried at least 6 chairs for the last 3 years.
Until she finds the right one, Kent sits on an old wooden chair in front of her desk.
The wooden chair is not ideal, but it doesn't cause me lower back pain like the fancy chairs I tried to buy.
Consumer Reports ergonomic experts recently evaluated budget office chairs.
When looking for an ergonomic chair, the one thing I tell people to focus on is adjustability, because that's going to allow you to fit the chair to your body.
They gave top marks to the Staples Dexley chair. You can adjust the height, armrest, lumbar, and headrest.
It's really unlikely you'll ever find a chair that fits you properly without it being adjustable.
Your eyes should be at arm's length from your computer with the monitor at eye level. If you're working on a laptop, a stand can raise the top of your screen to eye level so you don't strain your neck looking down. The Insignia ergonomic laptop stand requires no assembly or tools to adjust the height. While using a mouse, a wrist rest can keep your arm in a neutral position to help reduce hand or wrist discomfort. Consider this small and supportive one from Belkin. And if your feet can't rest flat on the floor, try a footrest to bring the floor to you. You can also experiment with items you have around the house.
With a footrest, you're going to help support the feet and take some pressure off the underside of the thigh, which you'd find if your feet were just dangling.
You could also consider a standing desk, but they're not for everyone.
It isn't that standing all day is better than sitting. It's that a standing desk gives you the ability to move around more, which is key.
No matter how long it takes, upgrading your space to fit the work you do is worth it, can make you feel better, and maybe even more productive.
When I find the right chair, I'm going to feel like my home office is finally complete.
And office chairs can be expensive, and finding one that suits you can take time. It's best to try them out in a store. If you buy one without testing it, check the return policy carefully in case you have to send it back. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
All right, we got a nice warm weekend to look forward to, and maybe not shorts for the day, but when that sun is peaking for a couple of hours in the sun, I think you can pull it off.
Yeah, this is going to be, I think, one of those weekends because we know where we're heading. I mean, we're towards the later half of, part of October, so this is probably going to be the best weekend we're going to have for a long time.
It really is. Even looking at long-range trends, we do get back towards seasonal. We see a decent amount of sunshine, but not 20 degrees as we make our way throughout the weekend. So get out, enjoy it if you can, because it is going to be one of those ones that is picturesque for spending time outside. Pumpkins, apples, decorating, all those things you do over the fall season. This is the weekend to do it. And if you're not done closing up your cottage or you want to get more time out of your cottage, this really is the weekend to get her done. But as we make our way in towards the next couple of days, it is going to be beautiful. Not record-breaking, but still really nice. We've seen sunshine and warmth throughout the day thanks to a more southwesterly flow to the wind. And a lovely shot of the Don Valley from the chopper earlier today. Stunning. Now, we don't have as many trees changing as we typically would just because it's been sunny but not cool. Those two things, that combo, that sweet fall combo, we haven't really had it because it's been so warm. But the good news is we do eventually return to seasonal. It's just not going to be this weekend. Temperature-wise right now, it is phenomenal outside. Again, this is if you like a warmer fall season. We are above seasonal, but not record-breaking, right? As we head in towards the rest of our day, it gets a little cooler, but we still stay at a pretty comfortable mark. Right now, we're at 16, the same through Windsor. It's actually warmer in Northern Ontario. Right now, Thunder Bay sitting at 19 and the same through Timmins, and the hot spot today was in Northern Ontario. As we head into this evening, very seasonal for the most part, with the exception of a few communities through Eastern Ontario. Bancroft, you're at -2. You should be at 2, but all in all, we are holding on to so much of this warmth thanks to a fairly stable southwesterly wind, very light in nature. Into the day tomorrow, we tiptoe into the 20s and we stay there for the next couple of days. So again, great for getting out, getting active. You're going to go to the Argos versus Red Blacks game tomorrow. Fantastic. If you're running the marathon on Sunday, fantastic. If you're just straight chilling the entire weekend, it will be fantastic. High pressure holds on firmly, but we'll keep an eye on that cold front. It will eventually make its way down, cooling things off and bringing the potential of a few passing showers. But that won't be tonight, Saturday or Sunday. We are looking at high pressure keeping us nice and clear so the map, there's not a cloud in the sky as we get through the end of the day today and we step into our Saturday. Lots of sunshine out there, a low UV index. And Nathan's right, if you want to rock the shorts in the afternoon, you probably can because we'll sit around 20 degrees into that sweet spot around 2 to maybe 4 or 5 p.m. As we head in towards our Sunday, almost an identical forecast, but we hold on to so much more of that warmth as we head in towards the evening. And spoiler alert, it gets even nicer as we head in towards Monday and Tuesday. So again, maybe you work the weekends, don't worry about it. If you're off Monday, it's still super nice. Temperature-wise, we are still in the 20s through your Saturday right through to Tuesday. It is a little warmer as we head into our Sunday evening. If where you live, say if you're in a condo, an apartment, and it's already kicked over to the heat, could be a little challenging, but you can probably just open the window, right? As we head in towards Monday, 23, Tuesday, 22, and a mix of sun and cloud. That cold front that was in Northern Ontario, that will sink its way down. It will bring a little bit of a cool down after we get through Wednesday, but that is honestly just back to seasonal. So we really do step in towards almost the end of the month with a fantastic fall forecast, whether you like the warmer weather or the cooler weather. Nathan, I'll send things back over to you.
Thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
The city's begun a review and refresh of Toronto's parks and recreation facilities plan and parkland strategy. Those documents guide municipal decision-making around future investments in those amenities. In a push to get input from residents, Mayor Olivia Chow kicked off a public outreach campaign at Alvin Curling Public School in Scarborough, near the site of an under-construction community center.
In the city, where should we put our parks and where should we put our recreation center? And what should we put in the recreation center? Should there be a swimming pool? Should there be a basketball court? Should there be a cricket field? Should it be a soccer field?
Consultations are planned in all 25 wards, or you can weigh in online. The effort comes after a city audit found many parks maintenance crews aren't spending as much time as they claim at work sites.
Also tonight, a history of trauma care. 75 years after a Canadian steamship erupted in flames in the Toronto harbor, St. Mike's Hospital looks back at harrowing efforts to treat the mass casualties, honoring a tradition of saving lives. St. Michael's Hospital is marking the 75th anniversary of a terrible maritime disaster.
Officials say it's an example of the health center's excellence in trauma care, even back then. CTV's Pauline Chan brings us the story.
With its helicopter pad on top and a busy emergency entrance for ambulances on Shooter Street, St. Michael's Hospital has long been the trauma center in the heart of the city. But in September of 1949, a massive fire aboard the SS Neuronic made the hospital especially vital.
All of a sudden, sirens from everywhere and patients from everywhere. And it surprised me always how quickly things fell into place.
Lenore Sheehan McGran was a young nurse on duty in the emergency department the night of September 16th, when dozens of casualties began pouring into the hospital, many with burns from the fire that had broken out on the steamship. It had docked at Toronto Harbour as part of a luxury cruise around Lake Ontario.
They were badly burned, as you could see them sitting around, and there was no complaint. I want you to know that Toronto responded 100% to this tragedy.
And it spread extremely quickly. Very sadly, over 119 people died in this tragedy.
And as an emergency physician now, Dr. Carolyn Snyder draws parallels with the way the trauma center worked even then.
Commonalities that continue to exist today. That when a tragedy occurs, that the emergency department and indeed the entire hospital comes together.
She notes that because some of the young doctors had recently returned from World War II, they were able to take charge.
And they know far too well how to manage mass casualties. And they, took over direction of this. And she told me the story with sort of a twinkle in her eye. She said, I'd never seen the senior doctors take orders from the young doctors.
Dr. Snyder says some of the equipment and techniques may have changed over the decades, but the focus and dedication of the medical teams remains and will continue as St. Mike's builds for the future. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Tributes continue to pour in following the death of former One Direction member Liam Payne, including for the man who helped form the boy band. Simon Cowell teamed Payne up with his fellow future bandmates when they were auditioning for X Factor in 2010. Cowell posted today saying in part, Liam, I am truly devastated, heartbroken, and I feel empty, and I want you to know how much love and respect I have for you. Every tear I have shed is a memory of you. Rest in peace, my friend. Liam Payne fell from a balcony in Buenos Aires this week and did not survive. He was 31.
Taylor Swift is returning to the stage as the next leg of her Eras concert tour gets underway. Swift posted this video from the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. She added the caption, "Back in the office." The singer is coming off a 2-month break tonight with a stretch of shows south of the border and then 6 sold-out concerts here in Toronto in November. The city says it will implement a limited activity zone on roadways around the Rogers Centre during that time to cut down on crowding and gridlock.
And an update on a story we brought you last week about some Swifties who discovered their tickets to the Eras Tour in Toronto were stolen. Kaylee Moe and Maya Gelfin reported having tickets transferred out of their Ticketmaster accounts. The company now tells CTV News they've been in touch with the fans we spoke with, and their tickets have been returned.
After the break, changes to electricity prices for homes, small businesses, and farms are on the way. The new pricing plan and how you might be able to save money.
We are thoroughly exploring why this incident occurred.
Updating our top stories, Toronto police have arrested a 20-year-old man and a 17-year-old boy in connection with the shooting last weekend at a Jewish girls' elementary school. It comes amid a surge in anti-Semitic hate crimes in the city. But so far, police are not classifying the incident as anti-Semitic. They also can't say if it's linked to a separate shooting at the school in May.
The way this settlement is worded, it keeps people smoking.
The Canadian Cancer Society is criticizing a proposed deal to settle a long-running lawsuit over the health effects of smoking. A proposed $32.5 billion deal would see 4 tobacco giants compensate provinces and territories, as well as some smokers and their families. The deal still has to be approved by creditors and an Ontario judge.
We're going to have 30,000 runners this weekend from 70 countries.
The annual TCS Toronto Waterfront Marathon is taking place this weekend, with organizers calling it the largest foot race the city has ever seen. For those not taking part, there will be dozens of road closures in place and some transit service changes, so you may want to check your route before heading out.
And remember to keep up to date day and night at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading the CTV News app.
Every stock group but one has risen in Toronto this year, pushing the benchmark index to a new record high today. Andrew Bell of B&M Bloomberg has the details in business.
Hello there. 10 out of 11 industry groups on the Toronto Stock Exchange are higher this year, with materials, financials and energy leading the way. The TSX Composite Index climbed to a new record above 22,800 today. It's up just over 18% so far this year. The strongest group has been materials. That category is up 34%, powered by gold and uranium. The only losing group has been communication services. That group is down 8%, with investors worried that price cuts will hurt profits at telecom companies, including CTV's parent, BCE. The Canadian dollar traded at 72.43 US cents, down a fraction. West Texas Intermediate oil was at $68.69, down $1.40. Western Canadian Select oil, by our latest fix, traded at $56.78, down $1.52. And the TSX Composite Index ended at a new high of 24,822.54, up just over 132 points. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of B&M Bloomberg.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
The Ontario Energy Board has set its new electricity prices for households, small businesses and farms. As of November 1st, a kilowatt hour will cost 7.6 cents during off-peak hours and 15.8 cents during on-peak hours. It's worth noting those numbers only apply to time-of-use customers, and you can opt for different rates depending on your electricity use. The Ontario Energy rebate will drop to 13.1%.
The sale of new condos hit a nearly 30-year low across the GTHA last quarter. That's according to a new report from Urban Nation. Just 567 units were sold in that period, the lowest figure seen since early 1995. The number of unsold units in development dropped from the records seen in the second quarter of the year, but Urban Nation says that's because of a lack of new project launches. The report notes that 2024 and 2025 could see a record high number of condo completions, but that figure will decline in the years that follow.
On the ice, Maple Leafs goaltender Joseph Woll had a full practice this morning for the first time in 10 days. The netminder has been dealing with a lower body injury. He missed Toronto's first 4 games after suffering what he called a little bit of groin tightness. There is no date set for his return, but the coach thinks it should be sooner than later. The Rangers are in town tomorrow night.
Ramsey now on him. Walsh attacking. Shot doesn't go.
The Raptors close out their preseason tonight in Brooklyn. Point guard Emmanuel Quickley is questionable with a sprained thumb. Toronto is 2-2 in exhibition play so far. They open the regular season Wednesday against the Cleveland Cavaliers at Scotiabank Arena.
Kelly, 2nd and 7. Looks over the middle, low crosser, David Unger, the third, race to the pylon, touchdown Argos.
Round of the playoffs with a win against Ottawa tomorrow at BMO Field. Toronto is in second place in the East, 1 point ahead of the Red Blacks, who are in the postseason for the first time since 2018.
Just ahead, a rare and expensive piece of American history sold. A copy of the U.S. Constitution printed over 200 years ago is auctioned off for $9 million.
Tonight, transgender politics on the campaign trail.
Biological boys will not be in the change room with biological girls.
The Saskatchewan Party stands by its SNAP campaign announcement on change room policies in schools. Later on CTV National News.
The bidding took just over 7 minutes.
And when it was done, this piece of American history sold for $9 million. The rare copy of the U.S. Constitution was printed 237 years ago and sent to the states to be ratified. It was purchased last night at a private auction in North Carolina. The name of the buyer has unfortunately not been disclosed. The last time a copy of the Constitution that was sent to the states sold, it went for $400 in the year 1891. Just 8 are known to still exist, and the other 7 are publicly owned.
All right, this weekend is looking really good.
If you want to do anything outside, this weekend really is the one to do it, because we get into the end of next week and we do kind of ricochet back towards seasonal, which is still super nice outside, but it is going to be one of those anomaly type of weekends where if you can get out and enjoy even a few minutes, it will be great. Tonight, that's included. We're looking at high pressure keeping the sky nice and clear. We're still in the double digits as we get ready to wrap up the day. 16 right now here in the city. If you're going to a pumpkin patch tomorrow, 20 degrees, a light southwesterly wind, a low UV index, a fantastic pumpkin patch forecast. As we head into Sunday, almost identical, but even warmer in the evening. And then we get even warmer as we head in towards the beginning of next week. So it's pretty nice.
Wow, we'll take it. Thank you, Jess. That's it for us, but be sure to join Heather Butts at 11 tonight for CTV National News, followed by Zurada Allman with your next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and all of us here at CTV News, thanks for watching and have a wonderful weekend. You feeling air?